Okay, so the recordings, it's now 5 o'clock. Welcome all to our webinar. I'm going to share my screen just in terms of what we'll be looking at tonight. So if you have any, just to run you through what the structure or the layout of tonight looks like. I'm just going to share my screen quick. Okay. Great stuff. So tonight, guys, we're obviously looking at the SMME game plan, from surviving to thriving. The important thing is that this is not a blueprint for any magic trick. This, I want to say it up front, it's not a blueprint for any magic tricks. This is a game plan, and like in any game, the approach changes all the time. And I think that's the important thing just to note tonight, is that there will be changes to the approach all the time. Sorry. There'll be changes to the approach all the time. I just want to, if you wouldn't mind just giving me a few minutes, I just want to add someone in as a co-host. Sorry, just one second, guys. Oh, it's not allowing me to do it. Okay, that's fine. I'm just going to continue. Okay, I'll just continue. So yeah, so there's no blueprint. Very importantly, there's no blueprint for tonight. But the important thing is that we've got options. So as leaders of our various businesses, because that's what we are leaders of our various businesses, we have options. And I think that's the important thing to understand, is that we have options. Guys, just from a housekeeping perspective before we move forward, please note that I'm pretty much going to go through a set of slides. Once I've gone through the slides, the next will be frequently asked questions. And then we will have a question answering session at the very end. Question answering session, guys, it would be, I think it may be best to put your question onto the chat, because what that will do is that we then can keep a record of the various questions that were asked. So there will be a chat which you can type your question out at the very end. So just keep your questions to the very end. But for now, guys, just very importantly, yeah, so this is what it's looking like for tonight. Pretty much we're starting with a bit of an introduction. So the first section will be an introduction. The second section we're going to look at is obviously the current challenges faced by SMMEs in the South African context. Third thing that we're going to look at is our response as leadership to these challenges. Very importantly, as leaders, what do we just sit and wallow, or what do we do? What's the way forward for us as leaders? The fourth thing that we'll be looking at tonight is obviously available solutions that are available to us as business owners and as leaders of our businesses. And finally, we'll look at the conclusion. So we'll be looking at the conclusion and looking at various things that are available, or various ways on the way forward. Just as a matter of interest, so we'll be looking at, in terms of the sustainability of our business, guys, we're obviously looking at the sustainability as we speak. So this is during the lockdown period. We're also going to look at the sustainability at day zero. So what is day zero? Day zero is the day that lockdown is released, so that the day that we now, where there's free movement. And the third would be beyond day zero, so into the future. But for the purposes of this webinar, we will we anticipate that we will run this series, a 3-part series, to address the risks and sustainability of SMMEs at each of these 3 points in time. So at lockdown, which is what we're going to cover today, then then a week, then in a week's time, we'll probably look at day zero. Or the latter part of next week, we'll probably look at day zero. And then a week later, we'll probably look at beyond day zero. And then just looking at ways that will assist you guys at, obviously, as a lockdown, as of today, as a day zero, and then beyond day zero. Guys, just the current challenges we're facing as SMMEs at the moment, prior to this whole COVID-19, we know that South Africa had gone into recession in 2020. So that was the first challenge that we faced prior to COVID even coming about. Secondly, COVID then came about. Once COVID came about, there's obviously been lockdown and the implementation of the Disaster Management Act. Okay, and then thirdly, whilst the lockdown had just happened, Moody's downgraded us to junk status. So it's been a bit of a triple whammy in terms of the challenges that we faced in such a short space of time. So what we're going to be addressing tonight will be a lot around, how do we address the concerns or address the challenges relating to lockdown and obviously the implementation of the Disaster Management Act. So a lot of that tonight, what we're covering is really around that. Just in terms of leadership, so we obviously now moving on to the third section, which is leadership. Guys, just I actually read an interesting article in the Industrial Psychology Journal last week, which was really interesting in terms of how does one lead through uncertain times? What are the characteristics that we need to have as leaders that will assist us during this time of uncertain times? So the first characteristic, or the first area that the writer spoke about, was, as leaders, we need to be focused. Right now, there's a lot of information coming at us, very important. There's a lot of things there's a lot of changes that are happening as we speak. First of all, guys, we were told that we were 21-day lockdown. Then we told there's a further 14-day lockdown. And into the future, we really don't know how long this may extend to. There's nothing to really tell us really what we really don't know how long this will extend to. But the important thing right now is that we really need, as leaders of our businesses, the one key thing during this time is focus. We have to focus on our business. The second thing is obviously agility or flexibility. So the second characteristic is agility or flexibility, very important. And the third characteristic is authenticity, very important, being real and being honest with ourselves and being honest with the people around us right now. Very important. So those are the three important characteristics. And I'm going to look at these three in greater detail now as we speak. Okay, so the first thing, guys, is just around focus. When we look at focus, right now, guys, it's important that we look at revisiting our 2020 goals and operational budget. So if we had put an operational budget into place, very important right now is to go back and relook at that operational budget, because things have changed. Okay, we all know that COVID happened and things have changed. And so it's very important that we revisit our 2020 goals, revisit our 2020 operational budget. just to make sure that we're addressing, obviously we're addressing the challenges of COVID right now. The second thing that we just kind of need to revisit during this time is our SWOT analysis, in terms of our strengths, in terms of our weaknesses, in terms of the opportunities, in terms of the threats right now. Let's revisit your company SWOT analysis, because that now, it will now make, that now will direct your strategy in different ways based on the challenges that we're experiencing. The third thing that we need to look at right now is to revisit our 2020 cash flow forecast. For many of us, we kind of don't know how, what the next 3 months hold, or what, we kind of can't see beyond the 3 months. But the important thing right now is to look at your cash flow forecast and to say, guys, okay, so when it comes to cash, what cash are we anticipating to come in over the next 3 months? What are the cash that we're anticipating that we need to pay out over the next 3 months? So that's something very important that we just need to look at right now, and be real. And that's something I'm going to cover in terms of authenticity, is that we need to be real with ourselves in terms of our cash flow. So if our cash flow is looking negative right now, let's be real about that, so that one can make an educated decision as to how to move forward beyond, beyond this lockdown period, or even during this lockdown period. Okay, the next thing, obviously, to look at is we need to, revisit our business models, just in terms of key partnerships. Key partnerships being our suppliers, key partnerships being customers, key partnerships being our employees as human resources. But we need to, our stakeholder, or our shareholders at least, our bankers, we just need to look at the revisiting of our business model regarding all of this right now. The fifth thing is obviously revisiting your core team structure right now. And we're going to go a little bit more into this, as we go along. But just in terms of our core team structure, right now, the important thing, I'm going to make an analogy, is that if we were to jump into water that is below freezing, the one thing that the body would do is that it would move the blood flow from it'll move it to the critical or the essential organs to enable, or to make sure that there's, that we survive. So that is the kind of the survival technique of the body. Likewise, in business right now, we should be looking at moving our resources, okay, to the critical or essential parts of your business right now. What that may be right now, I'm quite happy to have one-on-one discussions regarding that at a later stage. But right now, it's really important that one has to look and see what are the critical, where to move to from where to move your resources from a critical perspective. What's really critical right now? Okay, so that's just in terms of our focus, in terms of our strategy, guys. We're then going to move on. Sorry, let's just move on. Okay, the next thing, just in terms of focus, is that when we're revisiting our core team structure, and when I talk about the core team structure, it's really about the people that's around you. It's very important that that trust becomes a big deciding factor in terms of your decision, in terms of your core team around you right now. I'd like to play a 2-minute clip for you from Simon Sinek, just regarding what he thinks about performance and trust during this time. So this is something, just, some food for thought for you. Just a 2-minute clip quickly. I'm just going to play that quickly for you. Sorry, I'm just having a bit of technical problems. Let's just try this again. Sorry, sorry guys, just hold a minute. Sorry. Okay. Okay, so let's just move. Sorry, I just want to stop sharing. Okay, sorry, this doesn't seem to be working right now. So let me just do this quick. Sorry, Melly, I just want to allow Melly. Sorry, I'm just going to unmute you, Melly.
Okay, Mario.
Hello, Melly. Sorry, I can hear you now.
No problem at all. Sharing is now off. You need to just share again, please, and then we'll be able to carry on with the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Melly. Let's try this again, guys. Sorry, let's just have a look and see. There we go. Okay, let's try this again.
Perfect. That's great. It's coming through.
Okay, so let's just start this from scratch. Okay, there we go. Let's try this again.
Okay, Mario, we can't hear sound. See if you can click share computer sound with us, please. It should be in the bottom of your Zoom toolbar. There should be an option to say share computer sound.
Okay.
Okay, we've lost the video. We're now seeing your Gmail.
Sorry, are you? Oh. Let's just stop sharing. Okay, guys, let's just move on. This is not going to work. Stop video. Okay, I just want to pause whilst we sort this out, guys. I'm just going to go back into, I'm going to share my slides again. Okay, so it's not working. Okay. I'm going to stop. Sorry, I just want to stop this quick.
Once you've got your PowerPoint up, share on the actual PowerPoint itself, and then we'll see it.
Okay. Great stuff. Can we see that, Melly?
We're still seeing your slide, so go to PowerPoint and then share your screen and share the PowerPoint side and not the actual slides themselves, Mario.
Okay. Is that better?
Not yet. We're still seeing the slide.
Okay, that's what we. There
you go. We're back. We're back. Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Melly. Okay. Sorry about that, guys. We just had some technical issues there. Right, just in terms of focus right now, the important thing is really around trust. And, it's about your inner circle right now and who your core team really is right now. It's very important that your core team, that you establish who your core team is to assist you through these uncertain times. Just in terms of, that in terms of your staff around you, in terms of your management around you, it's very important to look at your core team structure right now. The next point, obviously, we speak about is agility. Agility, we speak about the 5 Ps. Okay, 5 Ps. Proper planning prevents poor performance. Okay, often as SMMEs, often we find ourselves we don't do proper planning. Our planning is not correct. Our planning is not. We don't do planning at all. And right now, whilst we are focused, we also need to remain agile. What agile is to remain flexible, and in remaining flexible, the important thing is that we do the relevant planning right now. Okay, and the important thing, guys, that in terms of planning, it's important that we have a plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D. Okay. Very important, because the one thing right now is that things are changing so fast. And as things change, it's very important that we have a plan to meet those changes. So our plans, historically, we'd make a plan and it would sit in file 13 forever. Right now, guys, it's important that we have several plans, because whilst we have plans, we have options. Okay. The next important thing in terms of whilst we are planning right now, the important thing we need to be thinking about is this thing about innovation, creative thinking. Okay, what do I mean by this? What do I mean by creative thinking? What do I mean by innovation? So innovation, creative thinking right now, what can we do? What can we do in our business? So supposedly we're in a business right now that is, under lockdown, we are not essential services and we are now not earning any income. What do we do in this time? Okay, let's look at an example of a company here in South Africa. There's a company, DeFi, and if everybody's heard of DeFi, most of our kitchen stuff comes from DeFi. DeFi really makes obviously kitchen appliances. But during this time, they're looking at making ventilators, which is an essential service. It's essential equipment that's required right now. So they're being innovative and looking at what alternatives they have for them. Okay. Today I was on we've had our MBA lectures for the last 2 days, for today and tomorrow. Something interesting I heard today about physiotherapists. Physiotherapy, there's certain equipment that one could look at selling to your clients and to make additional income. Those are the kind of things that one could look at. Very important. So right now one has to be thinking out of the box. One has to be thinking creatively. What can you add that will increase or improve your revenue streams right now? On my group last week, my group that I sent, my WhatsApp group that I send messages to, one of the things I sent was a message or a clip on a table, and where the table only had one leg. If you chop that one leg, guess what? That table breaks, and therefore it's not worth anything any longer. But a table that has several legs, 5 or more, if you break one of its legs, it'll still continue standing and still has value. Right now, we need to be thinking along those lines, guys. Very important. But very important, we must be in our plan A to plan D. Let's look at best case scenario and worst case scenarios. Okay, best case scenario. You know what? I took forever to even send out invites regarding this webinar, because I was really not sure where the country was going in terms of the extension of the lockdown. So you'll probably find that I sent it out just before the extension of the lockdown. So best case scenario at that point may have been that we'd come out of lockdown on Thursday this week, or sorry, Friday this week. But now that's not happening, guys. So the plan has changed. So lockdown now, we're only looking at the first week in May. So, and that may be our best case scenario right now, okay? Best case scenario right now. Right now, we really don't know what's going to happen in terms of extension of lockdown, but let's work on a best case scenario and work on a worst case scenario. Obviously, as we can take our leaf from the financial institutions. Financial institutions have been granting 3-month payment holidays, okay? 3-month payment holidays. What does that mean? That means that for 3 months, they're working on 3 months as a scenario here. Maybe let's consider 3 months. You know, that's something to consider, okay? Remember I said at the beginning of the webinar, it may not be the blueprint, but it's a suggestion, okay? We have options. So very important, when we're working on our plans right now, let's work on 3 months as a, you know, where we're not earning income for 3 months, okay? So therefore you would have to update your cash flow forecast to show all your expenses and what income, what income that you'll be receiving in this time, okay? The next thing, in terms of innovation, guys, let's consider opportunities. Why don't we consider opportunities within essential services? As I mentioned with DeFi, DeFi is now considered opportunities within essential services. Another thing to consider is key partnerships right now. You know, maybe, you know, a typical example, where you have someone in the same network as you, okay, and that person, let's assume that that person is in essential services, but they don't have the capacity right now. Us that are sitting, that are non-essential services, certainly have capacity right now. So we could be assisting or forming joint ventures and partnerships with people that are within essential services to assist them in meeting their market share. And in turn, you will then gain an extra revenue, a source of revenue for your business. Okay, so that's just in terms of agility and flexibility, guys. Let's think innovation right now. You know, that's one of the things right now. I don't have, you know, we don't know what that may be, but let's just kind of, in our focusing, and let's look at being innovative as much as possible. Okay, in terms of authenticity, guys, just in terms of authenticity, very importantly, authenticity right now is being honest and real with yourself, okay, and honest and being real with all stakeholders that are directly affected by you and your businesses. Okay, so what do I mean by that? These stakeholders may be your, first and foremost, your employees. Let's start off with the employees, most importantly. Remember, guys, your employees they have anxieties, just like how you may be facing anxiety as a business owner, they are also facing anxiety. So the important thing right now is to manage their anxieties. How do we manage their anxieties? So I refer to a term called Johari's window. Johari's window says, the less someone knows, the more that they're going to assume. Okay? So very important, one is to communicate clearly and concisely. Okay? So during this time, clear communication is critical. You need to be communicating externally. So what do I mean by communicating externally? So your banker should be one of the people that should be on your speed dial. Okay? Your accountant should be on speed dial. Any external advisors to your business should be on speed dial right now. You should be communicating with them regularly, guys. Okay? Very importantly. Okay? So externally, you know, in dealing with your accountant, obviously they deal with SARS on your behalf, okay? So very important, but most importantly, your banker, to understand what resources are available to you right now, because it's important that you look at the resources available to you, you know, whether it be it internal resources, so what cash resources that you have available to you, but external resources being what lines of credit, and we're going to discuss that in greater detail in a couple of slides. The other thing right now is that you need to be communicating honestly and be real with yourself during this time. Very important. You know, we can't be thinking and having our heads in the clouds right now. We need to be thinking realistically. Okay. but at the end of the day, also one can't think of gloom. We can't put ourselves into the far end of the spectrum right now. Because remember what I mentioned earlier, we have options. There are always options available to you, okay? Very importantly. Okay, now, the other important thing is you fly alone, you die alone. I once watched a clip called Lessons from the Geese, which was done by Saatchi and Saatchi. And it looks at the various lessons from the life of the geese. And one of the important things is the geese are honking. They constantly honk to communicate to each other. So very importantly right now, you need to be honking. You need to be communicating right now to the people around you, okay? Because if you're not communicating, you fly alone, you die alone, okay? And so there are various, obviously, platforms that you should be communicating with right now, as I mentioned previously. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to look at, obviously, we've got some, very importantly, just some available solutions just in terms of a game plan. And these are really recommendations, guys. This is not a blueprint. And I say it yet again, it's not a blueprint. So just in terms of essential services, so on the call, we've got some clients that do fit into essential services, okay? So as you've obviously met the government gazette requirements regarding your essential services. You have your permit to operate during this time, okay? So certain companies obviously may still experience a decrease in revenue during this time, okay? Because your customers obviously are reluctant to venture out with the fear of contracting the virus or just fears. There's just general amount of fears out there. Okay, so what do we do in this regard? Okay, so first and foremost, let's look at communicating with our top 10 customers. Okay, just make sure or look at your top 10 customers, okay, review them to see whether they are still part of essential services, whether they're part of essential services or not, okay? Or you may just right now be looking at your highest revenue customers, okay? Looking at whether they are in the same predicament as you right now or not. If they're not in the same predicament as you, okay, start talking to them in terms of what's keeping them up at night. How can we, how can we change things? What potential is there so that you can maybe assist them during this period? Okay. You could be promoting your online sales. Okay. Online sales via Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. Very importantly, if you're going to be using Facebook, okay, and you're promoting your online sales through Facebook, try using the boost, the boost functionality on Facebook so that it reaches a wider spectrum of people. Thirdly, one could offer a free delivery service during this time. Okay, this may reduce your margins, but however, it's still adding, provided that it's adding positive contribution towards your fixed costs, or that it's adding profit towards that'll assist with your fixed costs. It's still a valid option for you right now. Okay. The other thing that one maybe could look at during this time, increase your digital marketing of your business during this time. Okay. Maybe look at getting experts in with regards to this, on how to improve the digital marketing of your business during this time. The fourth thing, obviously, is adjusting staff capacity to meet your current demands. So right now, the important thing is that, you may not have, you may have, your demand of your product may have decreased, but you still got all your staff sitting there. That's a bad idea, guys. You need to be reducing your staff demand, your staff capacity to meet your current demand right now. So what you may be asking the question, so what do I do with my excess staff? Okay, now's the perfect time to send them on leave. So if they've got leave available to them, send them on leave, guys. But there's other options that one can look at. We could always take this off on a one-on-one platform. Okay. The other thing that one should consider during this time is any VAT benefits that are applicable to you as essential services. Now, one of the things that the press did last week is that they kind of sent out something that said, VAT benefits, that means that all essential goods and services are exempt. That's incorrect. So how it's working right now is that your essential goods and services are only exempt if they're being imported into the country. And so if you were paying import VAT on all your goods coming into the country, that is exempt at that point in time. Okay, so all that means now is that it's moved the cash flow. It's moved your cash flow from paying upfront for your VAT and getting the refund or getting the offset in your VAT return. It's now moved it to your VAT return. So now you'd have to pay the VAT in your VAT return. Okay, but this is something that you guys can be speaking to your accountants about. Very important. Okay, so that's for essential services, guys. These are kind of some of the things, some of the ideas. There's a whole heap more. I mean, one can explore what your competition's doing right now. Because remember one thing, guys, is that if you are having if you're having a problem right now, if you're facing the challenge of COVID-19, your competition's also facing the same challenge right now. So everybody is in the same predicament right now. Okay, but right now it's important that you equip yourself with all these skills so that you remain focused, that you remain agile during this time, that you remain authentic during this time, and that during this time you put a game plan into play. Okay, because that will give you competitive advantage over your customer that doesn't have these available to them right now. Okay. Okay, in terms of non-essential services right now, guys, just in terms of most of us that are on this group actually fit into non-essential services right now. So just in terms of non-essential services right now, your businesses are closed. Okay, now what? Okay, I want to say to you yet again, there are options available to you. Okay, there are options available to you. So, right, so survival during lockdown. Remember, guys, it all begins and ends with leadership during this time. Okay, so you as business owners are the leaders of your organizations. So during this time, one should be considering the following, okay, to remain sustainable. Your working capital, okay, I mentioned it earlier, working capital. Do you have sufficient working capital that will carry you through maybe a 3-month period, guys? Okay, do you have sufficient cash reserves internally? Or if you don't have cash reserves internally, what lines of credit do you have externally with your bankers? If that's one of the things that you guys need to be looking at right now, is looking at the lines of credit with your bankers. Now, you all know that government has been speaking about funding. So, I mean, that's nothing new to you. I'm not going to tell you anything new right now about all this different funding through business partners, funding through the respective banks, or funding through government. Okay, right now. Now, remember that funding is not free. Okay, it is not free. It is a loan. Okay, it is a line of credit. Okay, they just have various repayment terms, and the interest rates may vary from credit to credit or from loan to loan. Okay, one of the Nedbank documents I shared on my group last week was that it showed the differences between each of these funds available for SMMEs. Okay, so very important. They are loans. They are not free money. The only free money that was given was by the Rupert family to sole proprietors, okay, who met the criteria, and they would receive 25,000 Rand once-off grant. Okay, so that was the only free money given. Okay, in terms of so that's our working capital. Okay, the second thing that one has to look at during this time, guys, we have to minimize costs. Okay, and we have to be ruthless about the minimization of the costs. Okay, I spoke about the body, and if we had to jump into water that was below freezing, and how the blood would move to the essential organs right now. Right now, you have to look at your costs realistically and say, how can I move my resources to the real critical costs in my business? Okay, the good thing is what banks have offered was obviously these payment holidays. Okay, payment holidays for HPs, payment holidays for bonds, so there's various payment holidays for loans, etc. But remember now, the payment holiday is for assuming it's over. They give it to you. They grant it to you over a 3-month period. Your payment holiday is over 3 months. The interest will still incur over time, guys. But the good thing, though, is that one must understand is that the Reserve Bank has just cut our interest rate by 1%. So that will help you in terms of the repayment in the future. But right now, guys, consider the payment holidays, very importantly, because these are all fixed costs in your business, okay? These HP costs are fixed costs in your business. Your bond costs are fixed costs. Other fixed costs may be your salaries and wages. Some companies may have big salary and wage bills right now, okay? Guys, if salaries and wages is your fixed costs, you need to be reducing it, okay? But now, guys, before we reduce salaries and wages, the important thing is, and the human thing to do is, let's look at all other costs first, okay? Before we get to your staff costs, let's look at all other costs first. Because remember now, when we open up, we're gonna need the same staff again. And the one thing we don't want is low morale. We don't want guys that are just, that this has affected them negatively because now they don't have an income. But guys, I'm not rooting it out in terms of reducing salary costs. If you were to reduce salary costs, there are options available, like the temporary employer relief scheme, okay? Government is willing to pay, obviously capped at 17,000, but on a sliding scale, okay? So yes, there are ways on which one can cut those costs and where government will then pay them for, I think it's the earlier of lockdown or 3 months, if I stand correctly in terms of TERS. The next thing is communicate regularly right now. Your top 10 customers, make sure that you're talking to them relatively often, guys. Make sure that you need to find out what's keeping them up at night. Because if you can assist with anything, this will assist you, it'll make you go a long way. The fourth point is culling costly customers, okay? Right now, remember, it's very important that we look at customers that are costing us money. If a customer is costing you right now, we're really putting our resources, okay? We're putting our resources to inefficient measures of customers that are not paying you on time, that are costing you a lot of money, okay? So even that, you need to consider, some schools of thought speak about the 80-20 right now. Looking at your customer base and saying, which customers are costing me from a 20%, you know what, we may need to just, these kind of customers, we may need to reduce them right now, okay? And then 5, the last one, key partnerships and relationships, okay? As I mentioned earlier, trust right now. Trust is the most important thing right now, okay? So we need to be trusting all the people. We need to be creating partnerships, key partnerships and relationships during this time. And trust has to be the focus right now, okay? Okay, just in terms of a conclusion, we're starting to wrap up this webinar before we go on to questions, obviously. But one of the models that one needs to look at, guys, just in assisting you going forward, is the first thing is, remember I said we need to be focused right now. And being focused right now, we need to be setting some goals. We need to be setting some short-term goals, okay? Short-term goals, okay? Very importantly right now. What do you want within this lockdown period, okay? What do you want in this lockdown period? Secondly, the R, reality, was the same as being authentic right now. Reality, where are we now? What are the challenges that we are facing right now, okay? What challenges are you facing as a business right now, okay? And O, what are options available to us? I've been repeating this. What are the options available to us? Because there are options, guys. And the W, what is the way forward? What will we need to do in order to move forward, okay? Very important, okay? These are some of the frequently asked questions that I've received. These are some of the frequently asked questions that I've received from various clients, okay? So So the first one is, as sole proprietors, are we eligible to claim temporary employer relief scheme? Okay. The answer to that is no. Okay. Because you, as a sole proprietor, the likelihood is that you probably weren't paying it, you weren't contributing towards the unemployment insurance fund. Okay. Very importantly, only the people that are able to claim from TERS must have been contributors towards the unemployment insurance fund. Okay. That's the answer to the first question. Second question, are foreign nationals eligible to claim TERS? Are foreign nationals eligible to claim TERS? The answer to that is yes. Foreign nationals are eligible to claim TERS, provided that foreign nationals were paying towards the unemployment insurance fund. Okay? Very importantly. The third thing, is the various funding repayable? If so, how much and at what interest rate? Okay? I mentioned that earlier, guys. Yes, it's all repayable. Don't be fooled by a grant. It's all repayable in terms of interest rates, and in terms of interest rates, and in terms of repayment terms. That will be determined when you're granted that facility or that fund. Okay. Okay. Fourth point. What non-repayable grants are available? Okay. As I mentioned, the only non-repayable grants that are available was to sole proprietors, okay, who met the criteria. Okay. Number 5. Okay. When is the right time to cut staff? When is the right time to cut staff? Okay, guys, as I mentioned to you in terms of your cash flow, looking at your cash flow, as you begin to cut and your various options, look at other expenses, okay, before you start wanting to cut staff. Okay, staff, I'm not saying don't cut staff, but that shouldn't be the first priority. Okay, yes, for some companies, staff costs are significant. Okay, and because staff costs are significant, guess what happens? With staff costs being significant, we err on the lines of weighing that option, of making that a priority, but that may not be a sustainable priority, guys. Okay. Okay. The next question I asked is, that was asked to me was, would business rescue assist? Guys, business rescue is one of the last options. Okay, so very important. It is not one of any of your first options. It is one. So if we've got best case scenario and worst case scenario, it is beyond the worst case scenario. So that will be a plan E, so to speak. Okay, so don't rush into business rescue. Okay, look at all your options, and that must be your very last option. Okay, so if we're to look at a spectrum, obviously plan A is, guys, we're heading, so when lockdown is lifted on the first at the end of 1st of May, okay, so best case scenario, that's when it comes to an end. Worst case scenario, we're looking at, I don't know, assume it's 3-6 months. Look, guys, I can't say. Okay, but right now, even so, what in your best case scenario, obviously, is to cut costs to help you through the next month. Okay, one should look at as a plan B or plan C, cut costs for the next, or look at extrapolating that period over a 3-month period. Okay, and then business rescue should be the very last. Okay, very last option should be business rescue, guys. But I'm available to chat with you on a one-on-one basis with regards to this. Okay, and now we come to the very last slide, which is really around question and answers. So let's just get all of this back. Okay, so I'm going to stop the share. And then I want to move on to question and answers, guys. Question and answers. Okay, so. Okay. Okay, sorry, guys. So yeah, you guys can. That's actually a good idea. Sorry,
Can the
Melly?
people type under the Q&A block so that you can keep a record of it, please?
Great stuff. Thank you, Melly. Guys, can we all just type your questions under the Q&A block? So the Q&A block that's available to you, type under the Q&A block, and then we can answer your questions according from there. Okay, so Keith Moulton asked the question, what was the name of Simon Sinek video clip? Keith, you can find it on Google. It is trust versus performance. Okay, so if you go on Google trust versus performance, it'll come up, that video clip will come up from Simon Sinek. Okay, so I don't have to share it. It'll just come up. If you go and check there, guys, it'll come up. Okay, so just in terms of the chat, okay. Okay, from Nick Pereira, okay. How long must you have been contributing to URF to be eligible to claim for TERS? Okay, so if you started in January, if you started in, an example, you've got a new employee that started in January, okay. Okay, I checked today and the business partners, okay, wait a minute, Nick, sorry. So the first thing was, let's just unpack your question there. So your question was really around TERS. Nick, if we go and look at, I think I shared some information on my group with regards to TERS. I shared something on the group with regards to TERS, but if not, I will then send you the link in terms of you know, how long must you have contributed as an employer. My knee-jerk reaction is 4 months, but I stand to correction. I stand to correction. But yeah, my knee-jerk, if I read correctly, it was 4 months, but I will send you the documentation just so that you know. Okay. So the next thing that Nick also put on there was that Business Partners has reached the 1 billion cap in grants. Okay. Yes, that was reached last week from 10,000 businesses. But guys, there are still other available options to you. So yes, that option may have come to an end, but there are still other available options for you to explore. Okay. The next thing, okay, from Adele, okay. Have you heard anything about school fee holidays? Adele, right now, no, I haven't heard anything from, I haven't heard anything about school fee holidays. I think that's something that you would have to discuss or find out from the school itself, okay? Yeah, so I think that's something that you just need to discuss with the respective institution, okay? Auntie Sharon had to go now, okay? Thanks, Mario. Okay, guys, okay. Let's just look at this quick. Right. What is business rescue from Keith Moulton and why is it last resort? Okay. Okay, so a bit of just a summary version. Keith, business rescue is where you apply to the High Court to be almost put into from a personal perspective, if you understand how debt review works, okay, so debt reviews from a personal perspective, often if we can't pay our bills, we apply for debt review. And when we apply for debt review, our creditors can't come after us. Likewise with business is now different. It's called business rescue. And that we apply to the courts for. And as you apply to the courts for it, your customers then can't come after you, can't come after you at that point in time. So so that's pretty much in a nutshell what business rescue is. Urban Howard, what percentage of salary does UIF pay? Can employees claim if they're getting a reduced salary? Very important, one very important thing about TERS. If you are paying your staff a salary, you cannot also apply for TERS. Very important. It will be rejected. So with TERS, you either not paying your staff a salary and then therefore there then be paid by the government on a reduced, obviously the capping is 17,000. Remember, it works in the UIF scales. So the less someone earns, the higher they're going to get of their salary. If the higher someone earns, the less they're going to get of their salary. And I think that the scaling runs between about 35% to about 60%, I think, roughly. Okay. Roland Thomas, a question regarding force majeure and what impact does this have on business and the impact on the insurance claims? Okay. Excuse me. Just in terms of force majeure, okay, for what does force majeure mean? It's a legal term. It's a legal term that means that, so a legal term from a perspective of, it's like an act of God or something that was unforeseen. So that's what force majeure means. And what it really does in terms of, and it's very important to look at your contracts, and only if there's a force majeure clause in your contract. But please, guys, I'm not a legal expert. Refer to a legal expert in terms of these force majeure claims. Very important. Legal expert, speak to a legal expert in terms of force majeure and how that could impact your contracts that you have right now. So if you've got contracts in place, honk at your legal experts, okay? You need to be honking at your legal experts right now, okay? Vu, just to clarify, I'm a foreign national and I've been contributing towards UIF. Can I claim TERS on starting business? Okay, Vu, remember now, so TERS is applicable to employee, employer, okay? The question to you is, at what point are you starting your business? Because prior to starting your business, if you're still an employee, prior to starting your own business, you can claim TERS. Very important. Obviously, once you've started your business, it's a different story. It all depends on what happens at that point in time. But the important thing right now is that you could only claim TERS if your business was registered as at the 28th of February 2020 or 29th of February 2020, and that you were contributing and that you were in good standing with the unemployment insurance fund at that point in time. Okay, hope that answers that question. Okay, Warren Moulton. As we applied for and finalized the application for TERS for our staff the day before, we were officially locked down. How long would it take to get a final outcome? Warren, I'm unsure about this, but this is something that we can ask, we can get you feedback on that. And this is the good thing about putting this all on the group or typing it out, because then we can provide you with feedback for that as in terms of how long will it take for TERS to start beginning to pay out. Okay. So Natasha's on the webinar with us, and so Natasha is going to make a note of this and deal with it. The other thing, just want to mention, Keith Moulton asked the question around business rescue. The one thing about business rescue, Keith, is that if you go the business rescue route, you must understand that it will impact on your future ability to obtain credit. Okay, very important. So if you go business rescue, nobody will want to give you credit in the future. Okay, and they will expect you to trade your way out of your predicament. Okay, Mike Lombard. Once the lockdown is lifted, what's the possibility that business across the board in general will inflate pricing structures upward to try and recover some losses, albeit in a small way? Mike, Mike, just regards to your question right now, the reality is that it all depends on the market. Obviously, provided the government doesn't put any laws into place to prohibit that, and people do inflate their pricing structures to make up for losses, and the market accepts it, then so be it. One, the market accepts it, but two, that there's no regulation in place. If regulation is put into place, that will prohibit that from happening. Okay, so that'll prohibit you from inflating any pricing structures. But if there's no regulation in place, yes, then yes, people will start increasing pricing slightly. Okay, that is a risk that's out there. But remember, it's up to the market to accept or reject that. Okay, if it's something in great demand, you know, if we're to look at demand and supply, if there's a demand, and you're requiring something, yes, you're gonna pay that extra price for it. Okay, that's something to. But we hope that the government does address this. Anthony Tweedle, thank you for your question, Anthony. We have been a partnership and don't have a company registration number. How do we register online for TERS as they require a company registration number? Thank you for that question, Anthony. Anthony, I was on a call with South African Institute of Professional Accountants last week, and this was one of the things that came out as a concern from that call, Anthony. So we will be, I know that South African Institute of Professional Accountants are meant to come back to all its members in terms of how do they move forward in terms of partnerships, because partnerships were not included in that, and yet partnerships have contributed towards the unemployment insurance fund. So that's something that Natasha will make a note of and come back to you shortly with regards to that, Anthony. Okay, so just back to the chat here. Okay, so the question that we received from Adele was, are we assisting with the completion of disaster fund forms? Yes, we are. This is a pro bono service that we're offering to all out there. So Natasha is heading this up with the completion of these disaster forms. And as I said, we're offering that as a pro bono service, the completion of the forms and any registration on databases. Okay, Calvin, we've got an email back from UIF TERS saying that most applicants had not filed in attachment 1, but the guidelines in the first email saying that small business without a payroll system need not fill in attachment 1 and only complete attachment 3. So they seem to be as lost as I do. Calvin, what we will do is we will take this question down and we will respond to you personally in terms of this, but also on the group, on all platforms that I have available, I will respond to all. So some of these questions that haven't been answered tonight, we'll certainly be able to answer them in a week's time when we have our second webinar. But most importantly, so Calvin, we will, if we don't answer it, then we'll certainly answer it before the webinar next Wednesday, or next week. I still need to set up a time for that webinar. Okay. From Luandile Baleni, is TERS for staff salaries only, or is the owner's salary included as well? Okay. Now, the owner's salary, and I had a conversation with regards to someone the other day regarding this, is the owner's salary, if you are still paying yourself any benefits out of your business. So if you're still receiving some benefit out of your business one way or the other, as an owner of your PTY Limited, you'll be disqualified automatically because there is still benefit that you're receiving, okay? And you still have the means to do that. So as an owner, if you contributed towards the unemployment insurance fund and you're not receiving any benefits out of your company, I'm quite sure, remember, you are still an employee of that PTY Limited, okay? Even though you're the owner, you're still the employee and you were contributing towards the unemployment insurance fund. If you weren't contributing towards the unemployment insurance fund, then no, you can't claim TERS. Okay, just regards to, we're just gonna, guys, we're just gonna take the final questions now. Because we've really gone over, and we're starting to see people off leaving us now. So we will, yeah. So guys, thank you for your time. We will certainly keep you in the loop regarding the next webinar. And we'd like some feedback from you regarding this webinar. As a matter of interest, we just like, so if you wouldn't mind emailing us any feedback regarding this webinar, it will be really good. I'll just also look to see what functionalities that Zoom has to be able to give us some feedback as well from you guys. Once again, thank you for your time, and we look forward to seeing you next week with and answering your questions. Have a good evening all.